Good evening, everybody. I will call the meeting of the Lenox School Committee to order and begin by stating, if you're watching this, that you already know we're on ctsbtv.org, Education Channel 1302, and it will also be rebroadcast, and you can check the website for times. And okay, and then item 2 would be hearing of any visitors. Do we have any guest speakers tonight? Okay, and I don't have any correspondence, so...
They're later.
Yeah, they're on the agenda, so they're not the hearing of visitors. But we will hear you. And then we have, if I could hear from anyone with an approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2024.
I move to approve the meeting minutes from February 12th, 2024.
Second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Collins.
All
and
right.
Welcome back, everybody, from vacation. It was a good vacation.
Highlights and recognitions. The girls' basketball went to the Western Mass Finals. Kudos for them for getting that far. It's very exciting. The students just returned from Italy last night. That was another wonderful opportunity, and we're all thankful to the school committee for letting them go. I wanted to just point out to folks who are looking at our new website that we have added a feature called the Alumni Corner. And so we have our first alum up there, but it'll be a place where alumni of Lenox who either have recently graduated or graduated many years ago will be featured. We'll get to see exactly what they're up to, what they're doing, maybe some of their favorite memories from when they were here, or a favorite teacher or event. So check it out. We've got our first alumni, the Alumni Corner. And then staffing updates. Jamie Minichin is submitted her letter of resignation. So we thank her very much for her service. She'll be with us for another couple of weeks, but we thank her again for her service. And I know it took us a while, but our contracted paraprofessional Deborah Peters has met all of our Corey and fingerprinting, and that took a little bit on the Corey and fingerprinting people's part, not anything to do with her part. So we are now happy to welcome her on board as well. And that's the updates. And then we are very happy here to have the Latin American Students Association come and talk about their field trip to New York City.
Come on up to the microphone, however you want to.
Hi, everyone. My name is Juan Manrique. I am the treasurer, and I'm a part of the Lenox Latinx Student Association. First of all, thank you guys for your time and to have us here. We appreciate you guys a lot. So first, I would like to talk to you guys about our club and kind of like our mission. So the Lenox Latinx Student Association is a club created this school year for Latinx and Hispanic students and their allies. Thanks to Ms. Bermudez. Ms. Bermudez right there. We've been able to meet after school every Monday in the art room. We strive to create cultural awareness and ensure that the Latinx community gets the recognition and representation it deserves. Through our club's actions, we demonstrate that the Latinx community is present and ready to make important changes, starting within the walls of our school and expanding to the larger community. The school's motto is a brave and a safe space, and we create a brave and safe space for Latinx students to come together and express their identities as Latinos and Latin American culture. We strive to strengthen our community and create bridges between cultures through volunteering, educating, and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan.
Nicely done.
Hello, my name is Gali Gomez. I'm a senior in high school in Lenox, and I'm a co-president of the Latinx Association Club. And I'm just going to share with you some of the things that we've done for our community during the first year that we established it or that we've been running it. Some of our accomplishments come with the Festival Latino in Great Barrington. We participated in this yearly fair that there is in Great Barrington in this park. And we volunteered to promote the event throughout social media and photography. We also, during the fall, we also did the Halloween special. It was called the Trunk or Treat, if it sounds familiar, at the Lenox Community Center. And we created a Day of the Dead themed trunk to both educate and promote culture, Mexican culture. Another great example would be our holiday coin collection. We contributed to raising $2,000 to sponsor a newly arrived immigrant family from the Berkshire Immigrant Center. And we shopped for supplies and gifts with the funds that we earned for a family of 7. It was great to see the family happy and give them this opportunity. So that was one of our most heartwarming opportunities we got. Another one would be the National Migrant Day Butterflies. We created to display to bring awareness to NMD. The MLK Clothing Drive we participated in. We sorted clothing and provided interpreting services for the event. Another would be the coffee fundraiser that we've been doing for a few months now. We make coffee and we sell it to teachers on Fridays for 4 weeks. We tested it out and it was great. We raised the funds to fund all the opportunities to other people. We reached out to our local coffee distributors and received approximately 7 pounds of coffee in donations from Great Barrington Coffee and Six Depot, along with Guido's Dairy donations. We also had some presenting coffees from countries represented within our club. For example, Peru, Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador. And it created an opportunity to educate teachers on the contributions of Latin American and through the fun facts included on the coffees that we put, about the production and about the seed in the country that's grown. And yes. And our upcoming events that we are planning to do, we're really trying to be inclusive. So one of our big events that we're planning is movie night in Spanish. Most movie theaters, we know, they don't really give people the opportunity to watch movies in Spanish or in different languages. And they also don't provide subtitles. So we thought it would be a nice experience for them to have, a movie theater experience that they can't unfortunately have regularly. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's
great. You've been busy.
Hello, I'm Marlene Valero Calderon, and I'm a senior at LMHS. We are asking for your approval on a culture immersion and educative trip on Saturday, May 11th to visit Queens, New York. For many of us, the creation of this club has provided a safe space in which we can freely express ourselves as Latinos, Latinas, Latinx. Whether it's brainstorming our next initiatives, telling stories that we can all relate to, or simply dancing and singing, we enjoy each other's company as we learn about one another. This trip to Queens would create an immersion in the many amenities that Queens provides for its local Latinos, and create a deeper understanding of Latinx culture for the members of our club. These amenities in Queens include a wide variety of Latino-owned restaurants, stores, and activities that we can all explore. And secondly, this trip to Queens is also for us to practice our Spanish for some of us, and also a relevant experience for those who do not speak Spanish or Portuguese within our club, to be immersed in a culture where they do not speak the predominant language. And lastly, this trip can give us a deeper understanding of a Latinx community outside of the Berkshires. And Queens itself is recognized as an ethnic enclave to many, and it provides those amenities that generate social networks and mutual support for the Latinx community who rely on transnational ties to protect their cultural identities. And as Michael Liu and Kim Jerome write in their article for Social Justice Journal, ethnic enclaves protect from hostile elements in society that aid in the retention of cultural norms, offer work in, and sometimes the option of owning an intra-ethnic business, and allow for participation in community, religious, and cultural organizations and residence with the members of the same ethnic group. In other words, the ethnic enclave offers opportunities for Latinos to permit its members of the same ethnic groups to preserve their culture and create a community. We can observe Queens function as a ethnic enclave firsthand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Illingworth, and I'm a 12th grader that goes to Lenox Memorial Middle and High School, and I'm the secretary. So I basically, I'm on the part of the finance side, so I finance all the numbers, all the money, and I also answer emails to get approvals by Dr. Ames, who's right here with us right now.
Joking, I didn't reply to her last email.
It happens. He's a busy guy, isn't he? All right, so I'm going to talk about the logistics of our transportation, how we're going to get there at our Latin American Student Association Club. So it's going to start on, ideally, we want it to go to May 11th, 2024, which is a Saturday. So it's not Monday through Friday, so it's not interrupting school, obviously. Students and chaperones. There's 2 chaperones that will be coming, which is Alexa Bermudez and her husband, Camilo. And the train station that we'll be taking is Wasaic train station. We'll be transported by a school van, and we are going to give out permission slips, and those who drive are going to say that they're going to drive there, and those who are going to take the van are also going to take the van as well. Our departure will be at 9:45. We have to arrive at the school at 9:45, but departure will be at 10:15. Students arriving in a van will be obviously getting there earlier since they need to be there, which will be 8:15. Our return, students will leave the Grand Central Station at 5:09 p.m. for an arrival at Wasaic at 4:49 p.m. Students traveling home by van will arrive back at elementary by 9 p.m. So it's not that later. It's not like at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. We wanted to make our times reasonable within the hour. If anybody had curfews, for example, like my parents, they want me to get home early on Saturdays, obviously. So we made it really short, and we made it at 9 p.m. The cost also, we took in consideration many train stations to see which one is the cheapest, because we only raised approximately right now about 400, and we're right now want to take 15 members of our group. There's also 3 that might be potential new members that we want to also for them to contribute to our trip. So the total overall for 15, maybe including those 3, is 630. But with our bake sale that Gally Gomez did mention, we do want to raise more money so we can cover everybody's costs. It is $42 per person as well. So thank you. And if you guys have any questions or concerns, obviously too, I'm here to answer. So it's open if anybody would like any questions.
Great presentation.
All right, thank you.
I'm going to make one volunteer offer. If you want some flan for one of your events, just let me
Yes.
know.
Okay.
I'll make it for you.
Will do.
It might not be as authentic as you want, but you can try me out.
It's okay.
All
I
right?
bet it's good. I mean, it's coming from you, so. But yeah,
You can ask Senora Rodriguez. I brought it to the international fair.
Yes,
so.
I'm glad. International Fair is coming up too, and we also do want to do something there too.
And that's March. Will you give us that date?
March 18th or March 22nd?
It's in the newsletter.
It's in the
all right.
newsletter, so that's all that
Okay,
matters.
perfect.
But yes, we thank you so much for your time. We are all appreciate you. Even standing up here, I think it's a big accomplishment for all of our members, and we want to thank the approval as well for Dr. Ames. Thank you so much for approving those coffee contributions. Yes, and we also want to thank Alexa Bermudez for making us like a whole club in its whole. And thanks to my fellow members over here, they've been very collaborative, and I just want to thank you for your time.
And thank you. Thank you. You've really created quite a club, and you're busy.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we're busy.
Thank you, Alexa.
Thank you.
So,
Because, as you know, right, because they're going out of state, they need the school committee approval.
so I'll entertain a motion to approve the Latin Club trip to Queens, New York.
I move to approve the Latin American Student Association spring trip.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great time.
Nicely done,
Thank you.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Well, that's fun.
That's nice.
Okay, so we've got.
Other copy in our meetings. That would be a big hit.
Right? All right, I guess, so yeah, so our next item, we'll hand over to our deliberation of the fiscal year 2025 budget, please. You could watch on the TV. That was great. I didn't realize that Claire was new this year.
They did a nice job.
Yeah.
All right. So, you have seen this slightly different iteration twice before. And Melissa will highlight the changes as we go through. So, the budget process to date, this is how it's built, right? Through building and department meetings, getting input from staff, department heads, looking at all of the staffing needs for next year, any changes, any initiatives, reflects all of the contractual column movements and retirement obligations. It reflects the inflation projections from this year to next year, the special education needs, and then the review and adjustment of all accounts, salaries, and other obligations, and then specifically contractual obligations for the certified professionals, custodial, paraprofessional, food service, administrative assistants, student transportation, and student service requirements. And the year 3 of 3 or 2 of 3 is just where they are in their contract. So year 3 of a 3-year contract, year 2 of a 3-year contract, etc. Sure.
So this is a chart that shows the progression of the budget. FY24 numbers that were approved, what we brought forth in January of this year for the 25 budget, what we updated with in February of this year, and the dollar change is the February number against the FY24 number, and then the percentage. So you can see that the amount for in February has gone up. That has been with review of needs as well as salaries and some adjustments made in the salary calculations that were up or down, really a review of services needed as well. The receipts are a little bit higher by 1,500, and that's coming from custodial use of facilities, miscellaneous funds, smaller ones. I went back through to see what we used last year, and that was a more accurate amount, so I got that number. So our net budget right now stands at 13,281. 272, which is an increase of 1.189 million, 9.84%. And this continues, the first line is the same last line that you just saw. When we met in January, we did not have the benefits projection. I was anticipating 8%, it came in at 7% for all plans. We will see, outside of health insurance, we will see a decrease in the dental of 4%, but that's 100% employee paid, so it doesn't impact this number, but there is an insurance that is going down. The health insurance has gone up by 7% for every variation of the plan, So that's HMO, the PPO, and the POS, which are the 3 levels that we offer, family and individual. So that increase year over year is 6.65%. Even though it's gone up by 7%, we have some moving to Medicare, which reduces the amount, the percentage of increase when we actually move them where they belong. In speaking with the town manager, we had discussed a free cash application to offset additional needs of students this year. And the number that we discussed was $187,750. And that number is for the gap year. So when we have student services has expenditures, we receive reimbursement from the circuit breaker account that the state supplies. There's a gap here because when you have the expenses come in one year fully, you don't receive it till the next year. So this amount is an amount that was agreed upon with the town manager a few weeks ago at $187,750. In speaking with him today, he's actually put aside $250. So we'll have more money that will decrease the tax impact from 7.89, it'll go down a little bit. So I will correct those numbers in the budget booklet that you all have. It will update automatically, so you can go to the same link and you'll be able to see the updated number, but that will change to a higher free cash application request. This is similar to the chart that we had before that broke it out by level service. What are we obligated to provide and what are we asking for to improve? The top half of the chart is the level service, and that now it comes in at 1.216, which is 87% of the increase of 1.4. And the value added is, again, the curriculum position, the facilities coordinator, adding an assistant principal, and then increases in supplies and field trips. So 87% for obligation and 13% for improvement. And this is the waterfall chart that we had previously with the updated numbers. You can see where it starts at 14.06 million, level service increase is 618, value added is 184, and then the special education increases have jumped to 597. The free cash application reduces that number for the final budget to 15,282,023. That's the gross budget prior to revenue application and benefits. So that's at an 8.62. It's different ways to look at the numbers.
Melissa, just thinking ahead to the circuit breaker, I know it's a very confusing formula, but why does it end up being less than a third of the sort of exceptional cost?
So you do receive historically 75%, but it's subject to appropriation. But the last 5 or 6 years have been at 75% level. So that's what we estimate each year for the revenues that we'll receive in. And what will happen is a full year of new expenses won't occur until next year.
Right.
So we won't receive a full year of 75% until the year after. So this is lower than the increase, 75% of the increase of new expenses because of that lag in reimbursement.
But so, I mean, I guess when we're sitting here next year thinking about the 26 budget, will we expect there to be closer to 450,000 of new circuit breaker money coming in?
I anticipated 187,750 new coming in.
And so, right, so why is that so much lower than the 75%?
So we have current expenditures that are at, we received 96,000 The 187 is for additional expenses. They didn't occur at the beginning of the year, they're occurring at the end of the year. So we're not seeing the full vote in circuit breaker next year.
Right, but so I'm saying when we're a year from now, we will be in a year during which we have the full cost. And we'll be thinking about what the state will give us the following year, at which point it should be relative to the full vote cost.
Yes.
So for that following year is the amount that we would expect, closer to 450,000.
Yes, so the following year, after a full year of these new expenses, we will see a much higher amount.
If all things are equal, so if kids move in and out of different services, that impacts the number. So,
Well,
you know what I mean? So like at the beginning, if everything stayed the same next year, we were at this point, yes, because then we were, and when you cross over the fiscal year, right? If we just keep going, then you would estimate, you make your best estimation. Like when I had to do the emergency relief now, you're making an estimation even including all the way up to June. But even still, then you have to adjust in June. So if somebody left programming, for instance, and they came back to district, then we would have to adjust the tuition amount, and that would adjust the total end amount.
Right.
Right.
But assuming that if FY, and who knows what will happen, but if this is correct and we end up spending an extra 600K in FY '25, excuse me, we would expect an extra 450K of circuit breaker coming to us in FY '26.
Right.
And if that, let's say this set of services persists for a long period of time, does the 450K then persist, or is it a 1 year?
Every year is different about how they do the formula, so you don't
Assuming
know.
current law.
Yes, the 450K would persist.
Yeah.
Not additional 450,
Right,
but the
right.
450 would if all remains the same.
Right.
And the state appropriates the money.
Right, so I guess what I'm trying to just make sure I understand is that long run steady state, we're expecting that the district would bear the burden of about 150,000 of this 600,000 that we're spending. This coming year, even with the free cash allocation, will bear more than 400,000 of it. So there's there's still a big one-time cost for us just this year relative to what we would expect.
Yeah. And initially, when we spoke, the first budget had it coming out of the stabilization fund.
Right.
We, after discussions, we opted not to do that because that's not the intent of the fund. And we moved to the free cash application request. And there is some room if, Chris has already applied 250. And I just had the conversation with him today, so that's why it's not changed on here, but he's already applied more than what we've asked for. So, there might be some room there as well to move up in the free cash application to reduce the tax impact on the school side, the school department,
Yeah, okay.
from the school department.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and I guess just I think it'll be important as we communicate this to say, in a sense, even with the free cash, there's still a significant one-time here. The other thing to keep in mind is that when we're sitting here next year, if this is roughly how it looks, we will have a massive tailwind of incoming receipts this year, which means we will owe it to the town to come in with a budget 2 to 3 points below what it would otherwise be, not to pocket that and move above it.
Well, yes, and in the discussions, the point of the free cash application is only up to what we're going to see in revenues that we will replace with as a gap. So the reasoning behind it and the logic behind it is only ask for the amount above that we will receive in revenues. And then we should level out.
Right, but then shouldn't the free cash request be 450?
The free cash request can't be 450 this year because we didn't have expenses for a full year. The 187 is the amount that we've calculated that would be the additional free cash that would, not free cash, but circuit breaker that we'll receive. Good, okay. And the percentages changed very little bit, but this is the same pie chart that we had that broke out types of expenditure. So instructional still the bulk of the budget. Administration is at 6%, relatively stable. You notice that the student services amount did go up a percentage or two from the first numbers, and they're almost to 21% of the budget. And the projected revenue is the same that was presented, plus the 1,500 from the miscellaneous funds that I spoke about. So we have a total of 2.188, which is a difference of 10.66 increase year over year. And then the free cash is a different, you have to think of it a different way. It's not a revenue that's reducing our budget, it's offsetting the tax at the end. So that's why that's separate from our special revenue usage. This is our 5-year operating budget compared to inflation rate. It's the same slide, this hasn't changed because it went through 2024 from 2019 base year. So you can see that the budget is the solid line, the inflation is the dotted line. We have been below since 2022, 21.
So the summary is that this is level services, right? And you saw in the chart that there's an increase just to keep level services. So it's level services plus improvements to the curriculum, student support, employee support, and facilities. Again, it meets all of the contractual obligations of the district. It reflects all of the costs with the associated personnel changes that we know of. That provides an improvement to our professional development opportunities. The facilities coordinator helps with the good stewardship of both the buildings, and we believe there'll be some cost savings in having that be a person working with both the head custodians. And not reflected are employee retirement benefits. These are the next steps. So the public hearing and budget vote by the school committee will be on March 18th, and the annual town meeting is on May 2nd.
And we'll keep looking at the numbers to make sure that they're all where they need to be.
Is that 7% medical historically, where does that fit in the overall history?
We had, I think 4 years at 0%. Prior to that, it was roughly leveling at 2 or 3. Then it went to 0 for a good portion of time. After the pandemic hit, after another year at 0, it shot up to 8%. When the pandemic was over, or the initial phase of it was over, people started going back to the doctors and claims were going up, and they were getting things done that they had postponed during the first year and a half. So that shot up the claims versus the premiums, so it created an 8% increase 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Then we went back to 1 or 2%, and now we're back up to 7. So ideally, we don't want this because it's a budget buster when it happens to go like this. So they need to figure out a way to keep it level to some degree, at least in the same ballpark of a few percentages.
Minimize the sawtoothing.
Yeah.
And what are we part of? Just refresh my memory.
Berkshire Health Group It's a municipal collaborative. And there are probably, I think I have them all, maybe 5 schools, 6, 7, or 8 municipalities without schools that are all part of it. Berkshire Hills Regional is part of it, Hoosick Valley Regional, Central Berkshire Regional, Lenox. And Williamstown Municipal is part of it. At least they used to be, I think they still are. And then other towns scattered about are part of it.
Do you know if the membership has been relatively stable over?
I think so, I think so. The schools are the bulk of the membership because they have the bulk of the employees in towns typically. So the schools are the bulk of the membership and no school has left the collaborative.
Any other questions, comments? And just for the record of everybody, we're scheduled on our calendar for our meeting on March 18th. That would be the vote on our budget. And so that's what we're scheduled for. There'll be a presentation again, if there's any changes or anything between now and then. Okay, so that moves us to unfinished business of working through our policy section G.
Great.
Secretary, if you can present that, please.
Sure, so, do you want anything showing up? That'll be fine.
What? No. If you want it up there?
Send it to me, I can put it up there.
Did everyone have a chance to review it prior to the meeting? Okay,
Yeah.
great. So I think we're okay. I can just speak to it.
We, kind of the protocol we had started with when we were going through this was, you've reviewed it with your subcommittee, we have a chance to read it. We're not gonna read through every policy publicly on camera, because even though it might help everybody have a good night's sleep, but if anybody has a question or wants to have a discussion of one of the subsections, they could bring it up now. Does that?
Sure, yeah,
does that
that's totally
protocol
fine. And
work
G
for
was a
everybody?
pretty hefty section. This is personnel, so it was a larger section for us. In my email to everybody, I had included the edited version and the clean version. The clean copy is what you'll see on the agenda for tonight. And again, like Ronnie said, I'm not going to go through every single one because we'd be here all night, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have after reviewing it. And Kim and Dave are also on this subcommittee.
Thank you.
Kim W.
Any other?
Thank you.
Any questions or comments or elements for discussion?
Well, I just had one question. There was a section on like civility or conduct that had been suggested potentially to eliminate, but I think there was a note that we were checking with our
Yes.
lawyers about it. Where did we end up on that?
Let me just confirm which one that was. Bill, do you? Okay, go ahead.
Gabiba? I think we should have to pronounce that.
That would be actually quite.
School committee norm.
We
from now
could add a
on.
little comedy section to our
Yes, I
evenings.
believe it was paragraph 3 of Gabiba.
So, there was a court case, and now in Massachusetts, while we can request civility, we can't require it. We can't shut somebody off unless they are making derogatory comments towards someone on staff. You could stop that, but as elected and appointed officials, we can't. We just have to take that. There's no. We can't demand civility anymore. We can't stop swear words. If somebody makes a disturbance or threatens the peace, they can be removed from the room.
But that's all for our meetings, right? And
Yes.
the policy isn't for our meetings, the policy is for in the school building.
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were talking about our meetings.
If I'm,
This is civility conduct of parents, other visitors, and district employees.
yeah, so we do have the ability on that one to regulate that, but then you had put a note that we were gonna have a question about that, so do we
There was a
Are we waiting for an
question
answer?
in that same section, the authority of school personnel. And the note that I have from, do you want to speak to that at all? So there was, basically we're told that it's not enforceable. So any individual who acts in the following may be directed to leave school premises or school committee premises. So we're only limiting the school committee premises in that there. So it would remain for the schools.
Right, you can't disrupt the educational process. So we still have complete authority to remove anyone that would disrupt the educational process. They certainly are free to protest peacefully, symbolically, but there can't be any disruption.
Got it. And so the conduct policy in general, oh no, I see. So it's, because the version that's in the final strikes almost everything from the policy we have now and just leaves this authority of school personnel on asking people to leave.
That was, yeah, thank you.
So here, yeah.
That was, so MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees.
So this is the one we took out, right?
Right.
And
Yep, they, in accordance with that, they left what we could enforce and took out what we couldn't enforce.
well, we also have, each employee has an employee handbook and they have their contract as well. So there's
Yes.
And that was really
certainly parts
the
within the
bigger reason
employment
why,
contract. And for those of you on the HR committee, as well as all of us who review the contracts, there's provisions in there as well, right? So I think it makes, for me anyway, I don't know if it answers your question, Aura, but if you have this that generally says, but then our contracts would also be the controlling document relative to supervising or enforcing or disciplining a staff person who's outside the realm of appropriate conduct, right? That would come under their
Quite a few
employment.
of the recommended, that we as a group decided to recommend eliminating was just that. It was kind of like repeat language from contracts and things like that.
Yeah, so one of the things that MASC said was that, a decade ago or more, the trend was to put everything into policies. And what they ended up doing was duplicating DESI regulations, Mass General Law, what almost every school contract has. And so they've moved away from that to say policy should stand where we don't have those other things, or we're adding to those other things and not duplicating them, because then we just create confusion when someone says, but DESI's regulation says this and your policy says this, which one should we go by? So they've gone through and looked at all of that along with recent court cases and have limited it down. So this makes it much more readable, accessible, less duplication, and I think easier to enforce.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? And hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the revisions to policy section G.
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
And all those in favor? Aye. And with our thanks, because I know this is painstaking, time-consuming
We're
work.
almost done.
We're getting there, and really thank you, because it does require a lot of effort and thinking, and you're doing that, a lot of that work at the subcommittee level, and I really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, and then another policy proposal.
Sure. So this is regarding a prom policy that we have not had. Most districts do have one. We kind of relied heavily on Lee's policy for their prom. So this kind of came to our attention last year. The prom is typically, from what I understand, I didn't graduate from Lenox, but I understand that the junior class typically plans it for the seniors. And it's important that we, allow that group to have some autonomy with what they want to do as far as themes and decorations and so forth. The problem that we ran into last year was that from year to year, there were decisions being made excluding some students. So last year, for example, it was just juniors and seniors, and if one of those students had a girlfriend or a boyfriend who was a lower class, then they were not allowed to go. And it wasn't announced in a timely manner. There were some families that were upset that they had gone through, getting a dress and all of this stuff, and then all of a sudden they weren't allowed to participate. So it was important to us to kind of set some very, very basic non-negotiables, essentially, and still leave that up to the students as far as kind of, running the prom, so to speak. So let me just get in here for a second. And I understand there were a couple additions or modifications to what's in here? Okay.
Yeah, please.
Okay. I can go, do you want me
Do
to?
you want Jeremiah to present or you want to present? It's up to you.
It doesn't matter.
We work
what-
together, so.
Yeah, I'm not
Which was great.
represented, I'm happy to.
Okay, yep, so I'm just gonna, if everyone's in here, if not, it's okay, I'll go ahead and read it. So this is the second read of a proposal for Lenox Public Schools, policy regarding dances, including prom. This is regarding just dances this includes everything. Middle school dances are for students in grades 6, 7, and 8 only, and high school students are not permitted to attend. Guests are not permitted at middle school dances, which means no out-of-district dates, essentially. Middle school dances are typically 1.5 to 2 hours in duration. High school dances must be pre-approved and hire a police officer to attend for the duration of the dance, which I think has been typical and standard in prior years. So under dances, proposed language, dances are generally hosted by an LMMHS class. The prom is hosted by the junior class prom committee and associated class advisors. Requirements, all dances must be chaperoned by LMMHS staff. The ratio of students to staff should be no more than 20 to 1. At least one advisor should be present for the entirety of the dance. The venue capacity must be determined and adhered to within the planning process and ticket sales. The advisors of the class or club hosting the dance is responsible for planning associated with the event. This planning and needed administrative approval should occur in a timely manner. Advisors will complete an LMMHS. That is really a mouthful, isn't it?
Are you reading the whole thing?
Just the proposal right here.
But like all 3 pages of it?
I don't need to. You can save me the time if you.
Oh, I would
Totally
suggest,
fine.
I feel like we don't usually read multi-page.
This is the only reason why this is the first time it's being presented to the group.
But is it the document that we have that was attached
There were
to
two,
the?
there were two proposed changes from the document that was distributed.
So are they in here or no?
They are, and they're.
Oh, they're already in
well,
here.
Jose could explain.
Okay.
And their time,
Okay.
right? One was the language said something about the age went up to 20, and instead we said, it shall not be 21 or something. It just made it much more,
Are
So
not
I'm
above
gonna-
the age.
not
Yeah.
above the age of 21.
So I'm going to jump down to the very, very bottom paragraph at the bottom of page 3 under prom, because this is really the bulk of what
Yes,
will be
exactly.
affected. So, like I said,
Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, we didn't really have anything specifically about the prom in the past.
There was
so
nothing.
This is
Right.
a whole new piece.
it is.
Yeah.
It's not just a couple corrections, like this is, the prom is the whole new piece.
It's a brand new
Okay.
policy.
I wanted to be sure.
And you guys talked as a committee as well as with
Mm-hmm.
administration about incorporating things that had been done that weren't written down.
Right.
So there's
Right.
consistency and clarity, and then tweak the areas
Yeah.
that seemed appropriate, right?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Thank you, just wanted to
Sure.
understand the process.
And again, that bottom paragraph regarding prom, all the above rules apply to the prom, with the exception that exclusively for the prom, students who have graduated and are not above the age of 20 years old may attend as guests of a student. Clearance for post-secondary school students is determined by administration.
And the proposal was to say not above the age of 21, meaning they can be 20 but not
Have not
21.
yet reached the age of 21 may attend as guests, yes.
There was one more aspect of
Right.
that with permission.
Half an hour.
That's what, but it was, instead of not 20 plus, because the question was, well, what if at 20 months, the 20-year-old and 6 months? So instead it was simply not yet reached 21. But the other change was in that same sentence, I suggested that we remove the language about being a graduate. The question might come up, somebody could be 19, 20, and not have graduated, and this would render them eligible to go, which I think is the spirit of what we intend.
Gotcha.
So it was that, and then the other change was, it was near the top of the second page, I believe, was that we talked about students have to stay for a certain amount of time. I suggest that we add a clause saying that students cannot arrive any later than 30 minutes after the event has started. That's what we normally do in practice. I think we'd want to include it.
The idea being.
And that's at the top of page 3.
Right, students.
Where you see student attendees may stay for at least the first 2 hours of a dance once the attendee leaves. So you want to add a paragraph that says they have to come within the first half
Have
an
to
hour.
arrive no later than 30 minutes after.
So that parents, right, so students are where their parents think they are.
Right.
Right, and they're not doing something else, and then when the parents come to pick them up at the dance, thinking they were there the whole time.
That's correct.
They would never do
And the implication is that,
I'm not implying they would.
that. Just making it clear.
and the implication here is that these are students who have graduated from LMMHS.
And that's why I'm suggesting we remove that language about, and forgive me, Dr. Collins,
In
I
fact,
thought
it is here on the drive, but they've got a static copy of it.
But I want a student who's.
I'm sorry, I
maybe
missed that, I apologize.
No. Who's maybe 19, even 20, who, maybe they're still enrolled somewhere, maybe they're still, I want to get rid of that graduate requirement.
Okay, makes sense, yeah.
And they don't have to be from Lenox as long as they're
Not
Approved.
21, correct.
and not 21.
Right.
Okay.
I think that was the intent.
Clearance for post-secondary school students is determined by administration. So in other words, they gotta come to you and they gotta say, this is what I wanna do,
Correct.
and
And, yeah,
They have graduated enough secondary school students.
Right,
Just to be nitpicky.
just to be nitpicky, yeah. It just gives us a little more, we can be a little more inclusive that way,
Yeah.
but we still maintain some control.
and to Mrs. Kirby's point, it's just putting some guardrails around this so that the junior class can still have a lot of autonomy in how it looks, but it's going to include this inclusivity of who can attend. They won't be able to curtail that.
so process-wise, since we're doing this as a first read, which I think makes sense because we've got some edits, we could ask questions, comments now, and then at our next meeting on the 18th, we could have
The
it
second read?
completed. This would be the first, we haven't read it yet.
No, well, we have it a second read on the agenda.
I think we made a mistake.
It is a first read.
It's a first read, I think we made a mistake. So if we do it as a
And-
first read, then
Also,
we can,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. If we do it as a first read, we can make the corrections and vote on it at the 18th.
And just to clarify also so,
Hold on one second, I'm sorry. Or why don't you finish, then I'll hear Amy.
no, go ahead, Amy.
There's no second read indicated
Just says vote required.
for this, because it doesn't require a second read if you approve it in the first read. It's not a school committee policy.
I can,
I think what we're thinking of is that we sent
yeah,
it back.
I can clarify. I'm sorry.
Oh, because it's part of the handbook.
It's
That's
part of the
why.
handbook, so
Yeah,
you,
sorry about
when
that.
there are major changes to the handbook, the school committee approves those, and it makes it a de facto policy of the school committee, but it is then approved. So what you're actually doing here is you're approving a change to the handbook. So you don't need two reads.
Okay.
You can
So,
change the handbook at any point.
If we are aware of what the changes are, because we had several conversations, and of course, Ms. Novitsky has to make sure it ends up in the minutes, we can entertain a vote tonight. If we want it to have the final document ready to go, and it won't impede what the high school needs to do, we could also entertain a vote on the 18th with it tightened up with the exact language. I will open it up to your suggestions, committee.
Well, so question is because Megan, you also read the current language, is the proposal that this is additive to the current language or replaces the current language?
There is
We
no
don't have
current
anything.
language. We have very vague dance
What's
policy
in
that
our
doesn't.
document, what's the section at the top under current language?
That's all we had.
That's it, the one paragraph.
With nothing about
Right.
the prom.
You're correct, Rob. There's a small blurb and then that's it.
So are we striking that and replacing it with this new thing? or-
Correct.
Okay.
So what it's saying is, this is what's there currently, and then the proposed language is what it would replace.
Replaces it?
That would go away, this would take its place.
So you've got middle school dances, high school dances as you go down into the policy, rather than that one little paragraph at the top. And then there's some general stuff about approvals and, who's got to be there and all that.
And it does take a lot of currently what's happening and just,
So we would take
Codifies it.
this language and we would amend as discussed for the language about post-secondary school students, the age of students to be under the age of 21, and to state that the students have to arrive within no later than a half an hour after the event begins. Is that correct?
yeah, the graduation.
Yeah, taking out the graduating.
As you
piece.
consider your decision, just know that it wouldn't affect our planning at all if you were to wait until the March 18th meeting too.
I guess one other question I had, because this was the one provision that particularly struck me, was the attendees must stay for at least the first 2 hours of a dance.
That's only stating that they can't come for an hour and then take off and then come back in. If someone wants to leave before, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I go to prom and I'm like, okay, this has been an hour and I want to leave, that's fine, I just can't come back.
No, that's definitely not what the
No, it's
policy
not.
says.
And, go ahead, talk
No,
about
please,
that.
sorry.
I was just gonna say, typically, I think, having been to a few of these, one of the things you want to be concerned about is if we do the whole parents go, we have a wonderful, for those who have never been, a public walk-in, you get to see the kids. If everybody goes and then they ditch within 45 minutes, the parents may or may not really be aware of where they are. So the idea is, if you're there for at least 2 hours, then the students will be released. However, they're going to transport, and it won't be a quick situation of people saying, I'm coming for the first half hour, I'm taking
Right,
off.
but this isn't
So-
just for the prom, this would be for all dances.
So, yes, the idea would be that when mom and or dad pull up at the end and the kiddos are sitting on the curb, they haven't been out and about around town, they've actually been at the dance.
But what if like I only want to go to the dance for an hour?
We strongly discourage that. For all events, the 2 hours, the duration is somewhat arbitrary, but for all events, we tell families, we telegraph long in advance that no student will be allowed to leave the event earlier than this time. And 2 hours is reasonable.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah, and the idea is, to Dr. Khan's point, parents know that my child will be there at that event until 10:30, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever it is. And many students will want to leave at that time. We'll be telling them, no, you can't leave yet, no, it's not the agreed upon hour. It's also helpful if students are driving home, their parents then know that, you're leaving the dance at 10 o'clock, we can expect you at 10:30, or we know we need to check on where you are or have tabs on you. It's just, it's a way to prevent exactly that. Someone going for half an hour, letting their parents or anyone concerned about their friends, concerned about where they're going to be, lead them to think they're going to be there, and then they leave. And then we don't know where the kids are. We are accepting responsibility for the kids for that evening, for the agreed upon time. And if we don't have a defined hour, we don't have a defined window in time, we can't really take responsibility.
Well, why are we accepting responsibility for kids who, like, we don't do that for basketball games?
It's true. It's true.
Or like anything else in life. Like if this is already the policy, and I assume we're just codifying it, it seems very strange to me that that we would make a commitment to the community to detain the children for that period of time when, especially as high schoolers.
It's an interesting observation. I think the difference is these events that we're talking about, these dances, especially the high school dances and the prom, are by design an opportunity for communities to watch these kids go in, and then they have to go away. We don't allow parents in. It's only the chaperones that are there. So it really is kind of shielding those hours for the kids. So parents can't be sitting on the bench with their kid or at the game, sort of coming and going. And to be truthful, I'd love to say if you're going to the basketball game, you have to stay for 45 minutes or until the end of the half, but it's not the way it works. But these events are unusual in that sense, right? And the parents can't be there, they can't have eyes on. So we're essentially saying, we're gonna keep your kids safe, you're gonna know where they are. but we have to agree on, until a specific time.
It's not unusual at Pittsfield, I'm a 99% sure when I was there for the 4 years that was and I believe it was the 2 hours. So I don't know if somebody just came up with a written 2 hours, whatever, for the time frame, but that, I don't know that that's much different than any other district probably does, whether it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do, but I think for those reasons, people try to have some parameters around that to sort of protect folks and to sort of keep the event safe and keep people to a commitment.
I will say also, subject to, of course, if a student is ill or something's
Right,
going
if there's
on.
an emergency.
Parents
I don't think-
need them, then your administration will make the decision
Yeah.
to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Well, I apologize because I recall a bit of a different discussion about this, and I remember actually saying, so what if I want to leave after an hour? And I thought the answer was, well, then you just can't come back.
So that's also correct in that if there was something urgent and a mom and dad came and said, right, hey, I need my kiddo, yes, what we don't want is parents to believe that their children are safely in our care and they have gone off someplace else. And if they could all do that, there'd be no way to even call home every time one of them stepped out. And they wouldn't, once they left, be allowed to come back. That's
Some
pretty
of us
standard.
might possibly have experienced these things at times.
Now, if a student pre-planned to stay less than 2 hours, is that something that could be perhaps cleared with the administration?
I wouldn't want to start
I mean,
with
I'm
that
not-
policy, yeah.
No, I'm not saying it's a policy, but if I call you up and say, I got a,
So how does this work in
PM
the-
doctor's appointment, and I'm gonna stay for an hour.
I guess I'd keep listening.
In the
These
past,
are really
how have you
difficult.
handled the time, how has this been handled in the past as far as the 2 hours?
This is the norm. I mean, Pittsfield, Hoosickly, it's,
But for Lenox, have we implemented this?
yeah, last year I
previous
forgot the
years?
hour, but there was I was at the door, close to physically restraining kids. You're staying, you got 4 more minutes, you got 3 more minutes, you got 2 more minutes, until they were allowed to leave, because that was the hour that we had communicated with families.
And that's your preferred policy for how, I mean, I will defer to you ultimately on how you want to run this. That is the scenario that you want at the dance.
I want to know, I want to have clearly communicated with families, with parents, that, we are kind of accepting responsibility and we're going to keep the kids safe from this point until this point. I'm certainly not going to try to keep a kid there after, the hour that we've agreed upon. And the kids know, like I said, they knew what the hour was. They wanted to go, they had plans, and my commitment ended at that hour, at that door. I would hate to be, wondering who's going where and what are you doing. Families know when that hour is, and they know that their responsibility kind of kicks in, and I'm comfortable with that transaction.
It's a commitment. I mean, it's a commitment. When you're signing up and going to a dance or telling your parents you're going to a dance, it's a commitment. And if, I feel totally comfortable with expecting a student to follow through with a commitment, whether it be being part of a sporting event, the actual athlete, and it's a commitment. You can't just get up and walk out. It's a commitment for the whole game. And to me, this is a commitment for the whole dance. And they know it going in. They have the choice to not go to the dance.
These are tricky environments. It's difficult to communicate sort of how, like, everything that's going on. You're watching 1,000 things, and you have a lot of people that are helping you. And I don't want to be in control of a lot at all. I'm gonna leave it up to the kids, if you said. But there are some elements that are just really important, that to be really, really clear about what your expectations are, and to make sure you're all on the same page.
And to make sure
This
the
would be
kids are
one.
safe. I mean, I think when you think about prom in particular, it's a scary time. I mean, they're excited, they're dressed up, they're ramped up to do a lot of fun things, and they have their own ideas about how they're gonna have a workaround of what we've set for them. And I think, I personally really do appreciate that it's clear and there's no exceptions, obviously, except in emergency, so that the kids know this is what's happening and the parents know this is what's happening. It's really, there's well, what if, and and Johnny said, and Mary's going to, and then you're like, nope, this is how we're gonna do it. And then you check in, and then you know where your kids are gonna be, and having been through it, it really does, it's fun time, it's exciting, and it's what do we say, trust and verify is the rule of the day.
So this will not be a new thing for you to implement, and you don't
No,
anticipate any pushback on
I don't.
something?
No.
Okay.
So typically, besides the prom, typically the length of a dance is 2 hours.
The middle school number seemed a little long in my read. It doesn't, but the language was not hard and fast. It's not to say that all middle school dances have to be 2 hours. That last half hour can seem like a long time. But no, that's a safe,
So high school dance, not prom,
A high school dance, 2 hours? Yeah, absolutely, sure.
is typically 2 hours.
Yeah. They've varied, but that strikes me as fine.
So
And also, they could be there only an hour and a half in a way, because if they come within the first half hour at like 29 minutes, they have to stay the first 2 hours.
I guess my question is, obviously, other than the prom, which we have a separate language for, if we're talking about the dances, and they're typically 2-hour dances anyways, if they choose to come a half hour late, okay, that's your window of opportunity. I would just, then I'm wondering why attendees aren't expected to stay for the duration of the dance. Like, would that just be a simple, attendees are expected to stay for the duration of the dance, and then a separate language for the prom, which is, your, I guess I don't, because right now, as it reads, it says attendees must stay for at least the first 2 hours of a dance. Once an attendee leaves the dance, the attendee will not be allowed to be readmitted to the dance. So I'm just wondering if it should just say, attendees are expected to stay for the duration of the dance, unless, in case of, unless there's an emergency or.
Yeah.
It just seems like we're kind of making it a little bit more complicated.
I agree.
It's just.
There is boy, I feel like there's a huge responsibility here describing the dynamics of a high school dance, but I suppose the reason that's there, and again, this was language in committee, we sort of chewed on a little bit, but the mood in a dance does change when, in that last 45 minutes, and I can see some kids maybe enjoying, choosing to stay after the first wave leaves, after we've said you have to stay until this time. I guess that's
And I'm fine with that. I'm just saying, what I was hearing was the dances were 2 hours anyways. That was all I was trying to get. If the dance is 3 hours, then I understand this. But I'm saying, I thought what I was hearing was that the dances are typically 2 hours anyways.
Do we say, does the language read that in a non-prom dance, they have to stay for 2 hours?
Yes.
So
It's relative to all dances, but then the prom has its
Yeah, that's
subsection
what
at the
I-
bottom
I was reading
that says for
relative to
prom only.
We took Lee's as a template and worked off of that.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty common
Right.
practice.
Right, and when the dancers are being planned, when the dancers are being, the advisors, the students usually decide it's gonna be from this to this. And they, historically, they haven't been relying on, you saw what they were relying on, 7 lines of policy, but, and there's a time where, you have the advisors will usually say, okay, well, you have to stay until at least this time to avoid that traffic at the door. So once all the kids are in, sort of the doors get shut, sealed, and you know that your group's in for the evening. But then at some point, the parents will start lining up, kids will start to leave, and then it does change, the mood is different. I'm not sure I'd want to say, okay, everybody's gonna stay in this room.
I was
yeah.
simply questioning,
Yeah.
I was simply questioning the fact that, I was just told that most dances are 2 hours, and this language says you can't leave before 2 hours, so I'm like, why doesn't it just say you're staying for the duration of the dance? That was my only question.
Yeah, I get it.
2 hours is 2 hours. So.
It might, rather than require them to stay, maybe the line we're looking for is something to the effect of, there will be a predetermined hour that, all attendees must stay until. I don't know exactly what it's gonna be different from dance to dance. That's usually something the students decide in their planning.
And then
I think our goal with the policy, though, is leaving as little room for interpretation as possible.
For things like that, right? For the
Right.
things about exceptions and, but I want something different than what the rule says, right?
Yeah.
But I really would, I would hope that all dances aren't exactly the same, right? It's not
Right.
like, they're not all
Right.
90 minutes or 2 hours or.
Well, so,
Can't you just strike that?
but then we're left with no language as to how long it's gonna be. So here's the question, we can send it back for more discussion and then vote on the 18th, so that we're clear, maybe, have some more discussion about it? Does that seem sensible to everybody?
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to have the final version.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we can have more conversations thinking about it with administration and if the policy, I don't know if you're meeting again, but to kind of just make those actual final changes and then take a look at that part. But I hear what you're saying is you want to be pretty clear about how long the kids are gonna be there, that makes sense.
Just a point of clarification, if a dance was longer than 2 hours and somebody left at 2 hours, typically, we would not allow anyone back in.
That's
Like,
correct.
Once you leave,
That's right.
you're
Right.
left.
And that has to do with safety and
Yeah,
substance
no,
issues.
it's been that way every place I've ever
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put that on continued for a vote, with the final edits made, potentially on the 18th, okay?
I do like the 2-hour, for the prom specifically, if you're looking at, the wording of the prom, I do like the 2-hour commitment to the prom. Of course, I'd say all of it, but the 2-hour commitment to the prom, I do like that language for at least the prom part of it.
Well, certainly, they can talk about breaking that up, right? All right, great, well, it's good though, setting the clear parameters is important. All right, so that moves us in our agenda to subcommittees, and governance and leadership clearly has been working, and you said your next is the last policy, so I think you've done your duty, unless you had something you wanted to add.
That's it.
Human resources,
Nothing since last time.
TLC, we are meeting next week, so we don't have anything new. Finance, we've heard, and school building, I don't think there's anything new, right?
We had, nothing new, we were
Okay.
meeting in early March.
Okay, fantastic. So, having nothing else on the agenda, and if I'm not hearing anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.